Hey guys, Peter here to do an album review. Today I'm here to tell you about the debut record from Lutharo, Hiraeth, out October 15th as a self-release. This album has 10 tracks, 47 minutes in length, and they are a Canadian melodic death metal band. The structure of this album is perhaps the weakest spot on the record, so maybe this is the best way to start this review and then build up towards the real strengths that this album has to offer. But going back into this structure, I just felt it was a little bit rough around the edges. It didn't feel really smooth or perfect to me in terms of how it pushes you from song to song and how it allows you to navigate throughout the overall experience of this record. The waters are a little bit rough. There are some bumps along the way, so it's not smooth, it's not clear, and it's definitely not linear as far as the transitions are concerned. Nothing goes against the quality of the tracks. This happens because perhaps the right songs are not in the right order. You have to think not just of the quality of the tracks, but you have to think about what they're going to do to the song that came before and what they're going to do to the song that comes after in the big picture of the album. And that's perhaps the only weak spot or the only thing that's missing in order to make this debut record absolutely outstanding across all the different parameters. Once you get into the soundscape, you see that this album is very robust. It's big, it has big sound, big atmosphere, big presence, really driven, pedal to the metal almost all the way through. Not a lot of pauses, not a lot of breaks, but definitely a dynamic album that offers peaks and valleys, not necessarily from song to song. The fluctuations or the nuances are not completely drastic from track to track, but within the songs themselves, they're really interesting in how they're built and how they're constructed and how the soundscape and vocals merges in to that dynamic mechanism that the tracks have, making them feel a little bit more exciting and a little bit more engaging to the listener. I really like the overall experience that the album has. I like the balanced approach as far as the quality of sound, execution, and what you get from the atmosphere of the album. That is something that stays together and perhaps hides a little bit as far as the deficiencies of the actual album structure are concerned. The soundscape is so powerful, is so strong, so well designed and so well delivered that anything else that perhaps doesn't feel right completely goes amiss, or you completely skim on top of it because you're so magnetized and you're so captivated by the soundscape and by the powerful sound that this album holds. Within that sound, what creates that power? What creates that drive? To me, there are two elements that are undeniable, the pillars of this record, and that is the drums and guitars. The drums are outstanding. They have an incredible drummer that just provides power, provides strength to the tracks, and at the same time grounds the songs and creates the bass line, that roadmap that everything else is allowed to build upon and allowed to navigate and go into different directions and be as creative as you want it to be, because it always has that same red line all the way through. The drums are giving that red line. Doesn't matter how dynamic or how fluid a song is, or where the guitars are going, or what's happening with the vocals, the ups and downs, all the ebbs and flows that exist within the songs. The drums feel super consistent from beginning to end. The nuances that they give are not enough to really break away from that mold of consistency. And to me, this is a key factor in the overall explosion that this album has, and the overall sound that this album has, and how robust the record comes across. The guitars is the other pillar. I absolutely love the guitar sound. I love the execution, the leads, the riffs, the solos. You can go song by song with the exception of the intro, and every song has an incredible solo. This is one of those records that each track has almost a better solo section than the previous track. At least that's how it feels to the listener. You listen to the first song, it's an intro, you get into the second track, wow, this solo section here is outstanding. The next track, wow, this one is even better. The next one, wow, this one is even better than the previous two, and so forth and so forth. That's how the solos are on this record. I think that the reason for that is not just the quality of execution, which in my opinion is through the roof. The quality of execution really brings these solos to life. But I think the key factor for why the solos are as impactful as they are is because they do two things. One, they bring a little bit of the story that the song is telling musically into the big picture. They bring it into the forefront, removing all the boundaries that exist around it. You don't have any vocals, you don't have a lot of flares here and there, you don't have a lot of things changing as far as dynamics are concerned. You're just concentrating on what's happening with the solo, and because of that, you're able to appreciate the track itself a little bit more. On the other hand, they really allow the solos to be explosive, to be dynamic, to be rich in flavor and sound and thickness and layers, and when it comes into the forefront, bringing a little bit of an old school heavy metal, classic heavy metal vibe into these solos really made them extra special and added value to the overall construction of these tracks. You're not just looking at a song and saying, wow, you're expecting a solo here, so they gave me the solo that I was expecting. No, the solos added something to the song. It made the songs feel complete. It made the songs feel better. It gave the songs a little bit more of purpose and direction in terms of where they were and where they needed to go afterwards. So I love the guitar playing overall on this album because I think it's one of the highlights, if not the highlight, of the entire record. But the solo sections are just outstanding. Flawless on every single track, obviously with the exception of the intro. On top of this all, you have Krista on vocals. She gives you her full range from cleans to harsh vocals, some incredible high notes. I just felt that those high notes at times, not consistently across the album, but at times felt perhaps a little bit shaky. Outside of that, the clean vocals were phenomenal, brought a little bit of calm, brought a little bit of melancholy at times, and even some darkness to how you can perceive the lyrics and how you can perceive the overall construction of the songs. Her harsh, screaming vocals are perfect in terms of the aggression that they bring and the intensity that they give to the songs. Now, how the vocals and the sound cooperate with one another, it's also part of the winning formula and the strength that this album has to offer, because they're perfectly intertwined. You always feel like the melody of the track or the overall atmosphere of the track is going where those two elements are taking you, and they're never really going against each other. There's not one single one going against the grain. They're cooperating with one another, and they're kind of complementing each other in order to make the songs feel as powerful, as big, even cinematic at times, as far as the overall sense that you're going to get from the overall soundscape that this record has across all 10 tracks. For a debut record, this is nearly perfect. I really enjoyed this album. This is a year that's giving us incredible debut albums. This one is another one you can add to that list. Outside of the structure, outside of some of those shaky high notes, I would say that everything else is absolutely what I was expecting, because what I was expecting was something great. And this album went a little bit beyond that. It just really delivers incredible songs, really well constructed individually, understanding the dynamics, understanding what they want out of the tracks, and then bringing all of these different elements, the bass, the drums, the guitars, the vocals, into the big picture in order to make the songs as exciting, as energetic, as intense, as aggressive, as melancholic as it's possible within songs that have some similarities to them but still offering some differences in order for the record to not feel repetitive across all 10 songs. As far as favorite tracks are concerned, I want to start off with What Sleeps in Your Mind. The bass absolutely kills it at the opening, and then it stays there because you could hear it. It becomes more of a layer as you progress within the track itself. It's a super driven song. It's heavy, it's melodic, both musically and vocally. You see those two elements present there, almost where one goes, the other one follows, but they alternate and they kind of intertwine throughout the construction of the track. So it becomes a very dynamic song with ups and downs, ebbs and flows, changing between intensity and aggression with more melody in order for you to have a track that becomes a little bit more engaging, a little bit more exciting for the listener. And like I said, super dynamic, both musically and vocally, with these ebbs and flows constantly happening from beginning all the way to the end. This track has an incredible solo section, and it gives so much energy to the song. You feel the power, the strength that comes from it. Really completes the track well. Next, you have Phantom, a very cinematic track in terms of the experience that you get from it. The orchestrations that they incorporated in this song, while not necessarily taking a predominant role in the overall experience or on what drives the experience for the listener, they play an important role in pushing the song's boundaries, making the footprint of this track slightly bigger, and therefore you get that cinematic vibe from this track, from the soundscape and from the atmosphere. Vocally very strong, very dynamic, once again pushing the boundaries between her range, clean vocals, harsh vocals, everything in between, really creating the ebbs and flows vocally that you're also going to see musically happening. The guitar playing all around is outstanding, really outstanding guitar playing on this track. One of those that you just almost wanted to listen to it instrumental or a guitar playthrough. That's how strong the guitars sound on this track, how driven they are, how much of a heartbeat they give to this song. Once again, the solo section, magnificent, phenomenal, just so much power, so much excitement, so much energy, so much light, really pushing this song to that cinematic stratosphere that it had all the way up until that point. Perhaps up until that point, the orchestrations are pushing it, are pushing that atmosphere, are pushing the envelope. When it comes into the solo section, the guitars do it almost all by itself. They just really elevate the track, and they make everything that was happening up until that point become a little bit more noticeable from that cinematic perspective. Last but not least, Valley of the Cursed, heavy pounding song. The drums, guitars together in parallel, really pushing forward, really packing a punch, and really driving a heavy song all the way through. There's still ups and downs. This is a record that doesn't fall flat at any given time. There's no song that feels very linear from start to finish, that doesn't have ebbs and flows. This one is no different. Just because it's heavier, it doesn't mean it's going to be flat across all the different parameters. So it's a song that still gives you a lot of ebbs and flows vocally and musically. A song that intertwines those worlds really well. It has energy, it has direction, and that energy pushes you towards the right direction. The solo section once again really kills it. It becomes almost the motor of the track at times. You're almost waiting for that solo to happen because you just know you're going to get blown away, and when it happens, it definitely blows you away. My favorite one on the album is in this track, so that's something, because I was blown away with every single one, but this one for some reason felt a little bit extra to me. It felt a little bit more special. It intertwined better with the overall melody that the track had, made the song feel a little bit different, a little bit more powerful, a little bit more diverse, even in the way the solo section comes into the track itself. And then you also have the bass. The bass is really important on this track because this is a song that has heaviness, that has volume, and has a big sounding solo. So when it comes to the bass, you need the bass to be there to define the boundaries of all the other elements around it. And I felt that on this track, the bass played a very important role in creating those barriers, creating those defined moments that you're going to get out of the guitars, out of the drums, and out of the vocals. So very important place for the bass on this track. One that really sets this song apart from a lot of the others on the record. This is it, Lutharo with Hiraeth, out October 15th as a self-release. Let me know your thoughts on the band, on the singles. Use the comment section below. I'll be reading those and getting back to you. Take care, guys.